fell in love with the feeling, didn't fall in love with you. It was a song I was singing, it wasn't meant for you. I'm sorry that I can't stay, and I'm sorry we're like years away.
I bite your lip, and you taste like summertime. I can't forget the days when you were mine. Do you wander the streets every night just to find me too? Like years, echoes in the streetlights, in between those spaces, in the moments. Come and find me where we let go. Come and find me where we let go.
I fell in love with the feeling and your funny faces. You were beautiful and broken in all the right places. I'm sorry that I can't stay, and I'm sorry we're like years away.
Millions behind, or light years ahead. Our time is now, our time was then. And I hear your voice inside of my head, but it's just your silhouette. Do you wonder what happens to all of the love we lose?
Hello. Hold on, wait. Let me just. Here. Hi. Woo! Thank you very much, Tessaiden, for the bits. Hello. It's my face. Gone Queen is also down there, but she's not doing anything right now. Happy New Yuri. Otherside Picnic is my favorite Yuri. Oh, nice. I've watched the anime and I've read part of the manga, but I haven't read the this yet. The light novel with regular old words. So we're gonna do that today. Oh, right. That's not me right now. I'm over here. I guess we have to pause the redeems for throwing stuff, because that's not gonna do anything. This digital being has frozen our queen. No, this is me. I'm in the lore. It's okay. It's fine. Don't worry. I'm the Ghana Queen and the others are aware of my existence, which is very weird. I have a very strange lore, really. But yeah, if any mod in chat could turn off any redeems that are about throwing stuff, that would be nice. Thank you. You look very pretty. Thank you. I try. I try. Oh no, I don't even care. Whatever, you know. Doesn't even matter. I'm over here. Oh, hello. That's not right. I started up the VTuber program anyway out of habit. That's not supposed to be there. So, hi. If you're new here, you don't know me, I am Zoe. Not Zoe Gonla Queen, but also kind of Zoe Gonla Queen, of course, but today I'm just Zoe, of course. But I'm an artist. I made that and all the other stuff. I made that thingy. I made the chat box. I made the logo, although I didn't design it. I didn't make the original design for the logo. I just made it. I made all the little pixel art icons on there. I made all the little robots. I did my makeup. That's the thing I did as well.
Wow, I'm good.
True. I thought you were gonna use the VTuber program to stick a crown on your big self. Don't think I can do that, but that would be funny. I don't have a crown in real life. It'd be kind of fitting if I did, but I don't. Using the point meme is so good for cam streams, thank you. I figured like, I am still a VTuber first and foremost, right? Like these facecam streams are a rarity. They're not the norm at all. So I feel like there should still be something on stream that assures people that I am a VTuber, like if you're new or something, you know? So I was like, oh, I've got Gonla Queen pointing, you know, so I'll use that one. And I did. And now she's here. Rarity is a horse, true, sorry, so sorry, yeah, my fault. Rarity is of course a horse, we will never forget this. Of course she's a horse. Also I want to show something. Look at this Kirby plushie, right? This Kirby plushie is so squishy. He's the squishiest little shit. I love him so much. He's so good. It's so funny. And he's soft, but like he doesn't. His shape is still like consistent. He's like a marshmallow, you know, which is good because I'm pretty sure Kirby gets described as a marshmallow sometimes. So it feels very fitting that this Kirby is so squishy, you know. He's very good. I like him a lot. I bought him for myself the other day when I was having a bad day and felt like I needed something, so I bought myself a Kirby. It wasn't too expensive, so it's fine. Impulse purchases. I'm really good at those. As in, doing them. Anyway, it is also, I had something I completely forgot to announce, but it's kind of important. The last stream of the year! Is that a hair? I don't think that was it. It's the last stream of the year, which is significant, I guess. I'm not doing anything. I guess I am doing something special for it, which is finally read this book that I've been meaning to read for so long. But also it's just kind of fun. Ooh. You won't be able to see me again until next year. Sorry, that. Yeah. The black lipstick gets on my teeth sometimes, but it's fine. Happy holidays and a happy new year! I'm so excited. I'm retiring until 2024. It's true. I am going on a hiatus until next year. I'm so sorry, everyone. I hope you can do without me until then. Anything else I have to say right now? No, I don't think so. I think we're good. Yeah, it's gonna be last stream of the year. We're gonna read this, but we will not be reading all of it. A while ago, I had this on my throne, and I said if I get bought this, I will read it on stream. And I am gonna do that. We're gonna do it now. Wow, well, in a few minutes or something, or maybe more, because we get distracted by everything, or I do anyway. But I realized since then that I'm not gonna read all of it. I sort of like said that I would read the whole thing, but I decided against it because unlike other things I've read, I've explained this before, by the way, but I'm just gonna do it again because now it's actually the stream where it's relevant. Where was I? Right. Unlike other stuff that I've read on stream, this isn't old and basically public domain. This is instead made by a writer who's still around and doing things, and buying this book supports the author. So I don't want to read the whole thing, because then you guys don't go buy it for yourself and read it as likely and support the author. So we're gonna read one stream worth. Not Al. I'm over here. I'm not over there. Wait, how do I look at her? What do I have to look to look? Oh, right. Hold on. If I do, Chet, am I looking at Gauntlet Queen right now? Am I doing it? Hold on. Are we like? I want to do like the thing. You know, like the painting. I want to do like the painting. You know what I mean? That's good. I like that. Ooh. Fred Fox, thank you very much for the bits. What happened to the queen? Nothing. It's not her time right now. It's my time. Think of her more as a cardboard cutout right now. She's not really here. She's not like, I'm here, you know? I'm always here if you think about it, because when it's one of them, it's me through them, right? So it's like it's the same. It's the same. She's a cardboard. She's a PNG right now. She doesn't count. She's been put into the stasis, into stasis due to the loss of Zoe, pretty much. What was I talking about? Right. So we're gonna read one stream worth of this, and if you like it, you have to buy it yourself. Because I wouldn't feel right reading all of it to you guys now. I will of course continue reading it for myself. And maybe, you know, in Discord, I'll be like a little book club. Like, oh, who read this chapter? Did you like when they kissed a bunch? You know? That's what we're gonna do. Then you have to do anything else. Did I already do that? I did. So I guess we're just good to do eggs now. Do I have to redo my lipstick? Did I not do my lipstick good enough? Yeah, I could have done my lipstick better. Oh well. Imperfection is not represented well enough, you know, or whatever. Did she suffer when you turned her into a PNG? Was it at least peaceful? No, we just took a photo instead of in front of a green screen. It's fine. Face revival? Revival? Not the word, but you're really beautiful. Well, thank you. It's actually more of a revival than a reveal, because this is the second facecam stream that I've done. I did, yeah, the second, I'm pretty sure. We did one for a different book nook, because I'd promised to do one eventually. And then we did a poll to see whether or not I should do all book nooks with the facecam. And the result was yes, so here we are. That's definitely a loose hair. Got you. I still have 3 I'm in love with the villain and 39 Discworld books to read. Well, you're going through those Discworld books pretty fast though, Kira Cat. So I might not get around to this one for a while. That's fair. Oh, dab. Oh, I'm dabbing. Oh. It feels worse when it's on camera for some reason. It feels kind of funny when it's in the middle of a game, my avatar just jankily dabs. It feels weird when it's my face, when it's the real me, you know? Did you like when they kiss? Yes, please. Kunnen we een discussie hebben over de kus? Lol. Ja, ik denk dat de kus heel mooi was. Ik vind het heel erg prachtig als je meisjes kussen. Meer vrouwen kussen graag. Ik zou graag meedoen, als het mag. Meedoen, alsof er 2 aan het kussen zijn en dan kom ik gewoon bij. Nee, dat is niet hoe het werkt. How do I get cheese on my... I can't... I just got Parmesan cheese. I'm not... No, okay, redeem that one and mods, please redeem or refund the cheese and there's another here. And turn off the cheese redeem, please. Dutch, not the name, but okay. Eat some cheese. Oh, eat it. Sadly, I don't have any cheese to eat. Sorry. Cheese a PNG? I don't know. If you want. No cheese on face. No. Sorry. Maybe another time I could buy some cheese at the store in preparation of one of these, but not now. Also, I'm going to change the music. There we go. You don't have cheese, American cheese in your fridge at all times? What are you, not American? Yeah, mambalina.
Oh, yeah.
Someone said something that I was gonna respond to, or that was gonna do something. I don't know. Anyway, let's do eggs and then actually get to reading. Because I assume we actually want to get to the reading part of the stream, if I had to make a guess.
Hi.
Hello. Ba-ba-dum-bum. Ba-ba-da-da-dum. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Well. Okay. Oh, wait, then over here. Kira Cat. 0. Oh! Elec. Stellar Retribution. Yoamaru. Dark Nitrolin. Melzinoff. Dynalove. Tesladen. Morio's Fusion. Esteemed Jester. Muzzleflesh. Deaga. Wow. Wibbless. Thy Dungeon Guy. Atrimtoa, finishing the first exec. Mecha VT starting the second. Wise Soup. Ghost of Christmas Future. And Space Junk, I missed one somewhere. Let's see. Did I get Mecha VT? Maybe I missed Mecha VT. Okay, I did. Alright, okay. And Mecha VT. Thank you all for the starting eggs. Let me get the music turned off. The music started. Oh, I did get. Ow! That's loud. I did get you. Well, I missed someone. Since no cheeps, put an Amy on your U. Wait, does this still have to go on the cutout or? I don't know. I guess we'll just put her here? It doesn't stay on me because I move around. I'm like I move around more, I feel, when I'm using the face cam, but regardless, we can put her up there, I suppose. Let me. I've got to fill my bottle. So I'll be back in a bit. Hi. Can we get all these #1 fans somewhere on screen? Absolutely. He is at Aldi. We'll put him here. And now I will do the sippy, as promised.
Hi.
Hi. Another sippy. There we go. And now we can start reading. So, Otherside Picnic. I haven't even talked about what the book is, have I? Hatford Herrick? Let's see. Ow. Can we make Derek's eye blue? Well, that's not what a head is, but I like what you're talking about. That is cute. Okay, wait, I know what to do. Give me a moment. I go here and Spectral Queen. Where's that in the textures? It's not in here somewhere, is it? No. Is it in props? Damn, where did I put that? Ah, shit. Okay, hold on. You. No, not here. This one. Okay, you. And then. View and test. Assets, avatars, spectral queen. And then base files. Yeah, okay. There we go. Okay, so we have this. Put it over here. And then filters, color correction, hue shift to, it's about this blue. I am now realizing that it shouldn't be on fire, but it's whatever. She's also, or Derek's also doing Black Rock Shooter. It's fine. And opacity a little lower. There. That works, I think. Sure. So, that's done. Another sippy. Thank you very much, everybody, for keeping me so hydrated. Another fucking sippy. What the hell? Sort predates sounds. The skeleton's a copycat here. Lol. Black Rock Shooter. Duh. I think the sippy cooldown should be.
Jouw moment confirm?
Yes. Twixtures, thank you very much for subscribing. Thank you. I think the typical cooldown should be more than a minute. Maybe. Perhaps. Usually you guys don't abuse it like this though. Anyway, so. Otherside Picnic. Which, there you go. Hi. Is a light novel about these girls, if you can believe it, who travel to the other side, and the other side is filled with monsters based on urban legends and stuff, or maybe it's the other way around. Ooh, and they kiss. I don't know. They didn't kiss in what I read of the manga and what I saw of the anime, I don't think, but it is definitely Yuri, so I assume it just takes some while to get to that point, which is fair. You can take your time with it, you know? It's because we can't throw things today, so we need something else. That makes sense, yeah. That does make sense. The urine and pine so much. I'm so excited. So, we are going to be reading it. Now, should I put on different playlists? Should I put on... like, the spooky playlist I feel could be appropriate, but... where's my hand? Dang it. Spooky music playlist could be appropriate, but it also feels a little bit too goofy. I will not read it in Dutch, unless you redeem the Dutch redeem. Because then you can't read it, and also it's harder for me to read it if I have to actively translate it into Dutch as I'm reading it. You know? Definitely spooky plays, especially for first volume. I could, if people want that, or I could just stick to this playlist. Let's see. So, volume 1 is 4 chapters. Wait, so this... So half of this is 4 chapters. That's long chapters. Or... I mean, it's Omnibus 1, so maybe... It's more like each of these... quote-unquote... like... files... are more like a... collection of chapters, like they used to be short books or something? I don't know. If you stick with this one, you should turn it down a little. Is it loud? The volume's normal. Files are like short stories with their own chapters. Right, okay, alright, I was right. I win. It's not loud for background music, but it's loud for listening to you read. Okay. What do we want for the music though? Because we can try the spooky music for a little bit. Well, as I do some stretches, and then you guys can see if you think it's too silly or not. And I gotta do stretchy and posture check as well. Like, is this good? Is this good for the spooky playlist? What do you think? You should use the spooky Yuri playlist that every T-girl has. It comes free on your Xbox. I don't have Xbox, so. But if it comes free with your Xbox, if there's spooky Yuri on there, then I might have to check it out. I might check it out. I mean, emulate it, because you can probably emulate Xbox. I've never tried because I don't give a shit about Xbox. But you can probably try. I assume you can do that, right? Spooky Yuri is kind of the gender, that is true. Okay, well, we'll use this music for a while, and then if you guys are like, no, it's too scary, or more likely, it's too goofy, then you can tell me. So, let's see. File 1. Kune hunting. Beneath the clear May sky, I lay in a grassy field, drowning. Plankton-like shapes were jumping around across the backdrop of the blue sky. It was what it looked like when you could see the white blood cells in your eyes. Or so I had read somewhere. The wind caressing my upturned face carried the stench of raw fish. I had no idea if it really was fish or not. Since coming to the other side, I hadn't seen a single fish after all. I'd fallen flat on my back in the middle of grass taller than me. The roots of the grass were submerged in water, so my back was soaked too. It was what you might call a half bath. No, that's wrong. Completely wrong. You wouldn't call it that. If anything, it was like one of the lie-down baths at the super bathhouse. Although the water was a bit over 20 centimeters deep, so if I didn't make an effort to keep my face above the water, it would pour in through my nose and mouth. There was no lie-down bath like that, and if there were, it'd be torture. The lie-down bath of death. There's actually like a Greek king who got punished kind of like this, which is neat. In fact, I was getting closer to death by the second. My unique clove fleece and my camo pants were heavy with water. It had been how many minutes since I ended up like this? There wasn't a clock inside, so I didn't know how long it had been, but I wasn't going to be able to keep my face above water for much longer. My neck was cramped and hurt, and my abs had refused to stop quivering for a while now. I just didn't have the strength. You know when you try to run in a dream and your legs flop around, not moving at all like you want them to? That's exactly what it was like. My limbs were practically paralyzed. They had been ever since I saw that thing. I never saw this coming. I was naive. I'd found this world, got excited, headed in to explore, then ultimately ran into something dangerous and ended up close to drowning. What would happen if I died here? In the surface world were they going to talk about the mysterious disappearance of a 20-year-old female university student? Ugh, they were bound to write all sorts of things about me that weren't true. That'd suck. I'm sorry, Mom. No, if I'm being honest, even if I up and vanished, no one was really going to care much. I had no friends, so the only ones I'd be troubling were the people in the university office who would notice I hadn't paid my school fees, and the people at the student support organization who noticed I was behind on my student loan repayment. Thinking about that only made it hurt more. If I did make it to graduation, I was basically guaranteed. It was basically guaranteed I would be inundated. Inundated? Onion dated? Dating an onion? Where was I? I would be that is the right word. It means to be swamped. Oh yeah, like onion, like Shrek, who lives in a swamp. It makes sense. I see now. Yeah. Inundated by student loan debt. With my future looking as dark as it was, maybe dying here in the other side wasn't so bad after all? Still, I don't want it to be painful or excruciating. Just how much were you supposed to suffer when drowning again? I started to think when I heard something nearby. The sound of grass parting, footsteps in the water, approaching. An animal? From the sound of the footsteps, whatever it was reasonably large. What could it be? It wasn't just fish. I hadn't seen any animal fit to be called one here in the other side. Come on. Not being able to see what it was through the grass was only making me feel more uneasy. I considered laying low, but it was no use. They must have heard me gasping as I tried to come up for air, because a voice came from the other side of the grass. Is someone there? They're human! Caught by surprise, I couldn't speak. It was a young woman's voice, with an out-of-place sound of cheer in her tone, like she was going on a stroll through the park on a fine day. If I do this, I can hear my own voice a little bit better, and then I can work on my voice a little bit better. Meanwhile, here I was, inching ever closer to death. Could it be Satsuki? The voice asked. It was that. Not me, that's for sure. While I was confused, the voice became worried and spoke up again. Hey, should I come help, or are you dead already? I'm not dead. I opened my mouth, despite not having meant to, and water rushed in. The liquid that filled my mouth had no taste. Not at all. Bleh. I hurriedly spat it out and tried again. I'm alive! Help! While I was screaming shamelessly, I remembered the reason I'd ended up like this in the first place was still around here somewhere. Watch out! There's a dangerous one nearby, I stammered. Dangerous? What's it like? White and wiggling? When I tried to explain it, the image of that thing came back into my mind. Instantly, I was engulfed by an intensely sickening feeling and I groaned. Also, thank you very much for the compliment. I shut my eyes tight, trying to endure, but the white image in my brain grew more and more vivid, my mind pulling towards it even as I knew that was a bad idea, and my head felt like it was being twisted around. What's wrong? When you see it, it messes with your head. You can't look. That was all I managed to say, and then my willpower and stamina both gave out. My mind fell into an eddy? Eddy. Like what money is called in Cyberpunk. Well, I mean, it's not what it's called, but that is also what it's called. The swirling Man, I'm learning so much from this book. This is amazing. Isn't reading incredible, chat? Where was I? My mind fell into an eddy of unceasing dizziness, in fact. My face sank into the tasteless water. Bubbles poured out from my mouth. The sky I was looking up to swayed in the water. The bubbles rose to the sky and the clouds burst. Then, into that empty sky, devoid of birds, divided into nothing but white and blue, a bright golden color descended. I felt a hand behind my neck, my body being lifted. It was almost too easy the way I was saved from the water. While I was soaked and blinking, the owner of the voice smiled at me. I thought you were Ophelia, she said. Huh? I replied. No, I got it. I knew who Ophelia was, at least. There's that famous painting of her, like she's in a lie-down bath of death, drowning. I saw it on Wikipedia. That wasn't it. When I looked up at her, I was taken aback. She was ridiculously beautiful. Her slightly wavy blonde hair, her straight nose, her pale, smooth skin, her long arms and legs, and a figure I could tell was impressive even through her clothes. She wore an olive-colored jacket zipped up to her neck, along with jeans and lace-up boots. Love lace-up boots. I love big boots. Just in general, boots are so good. White woman spotted. I think she's Asian? Wait, what was her name again? Oh no, wait, wasn't she like... Well, we'll get to that, I guess. Maybe she's white. I don't quite remember. It's been a while. Anyway. I think she was my age, or... She's half Canadian. That's it, right, thank you. I think she was my age, or maybe a little younger. Looking down at me with her sparkling indigo eyes, she asked, "Is it already messed up?" Is what? Your head. I think I'm still fine. Or so I replied, but was I? Maybe my head was already messed up. A beauty like this saving me on the verge of death? If you thought about it, it really was too convenient. What was this, a middle schooler's delusion or a hallucination I was seeing on the brink of death? While my mind was still spinning, she said, "So where is it, the thing that messes you up if you see it?" She asked in such an easygoing tone I pointed despite myself. Before I'd realized it, sensation had returned to my limbs. They were still numb, but I could move them somehow. That way... hold on, what are you planning to do? Egg. Give me just a moment. Mike loves a rabbit, thank you very much. For the egg. There we go. Once she had set me up in the water, she stood up in the middle of the grass. "No, I'm telling you, it's dangerous." You're right, she said, squinting and sticking out her tongue at something unpleasant. "That's it, huh? Gross." "No, not gross, I'm telling you, you can't look." When I grabbed her arm and tried to pull her to a crouching position, I ended up looking directly at it again. The faded sea of grass spread out as far as the eye could see, and the fields of the other side dotted with dark groves of trees and ruins. There was just one thing that stood out, moving. It was shaped like a person if you stretched them vertically. It was an inscrutable shape, like a long shadow cast on the ground by the setting sun, had been peeled from the ground and had stood up. Well, stood. I pronounced that wrong. It was white in color, dirty white, reminiscent of smoke. That white, lanky figure stood in the middle of the waterlogged, grassy field, twisting its body around. Was it dancing, or was it in pain? Kune kune, kune kune. It wriggled. While watching those movements, my mind gradually went blank, and I started to feel sick. Despite that, I still had the feeling that I had to see more. Most annoying enemy in Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, to be honest. Which one is that? It's been a while since I played Ritual of the Night. I want to replay it though, because it was fun. It was cool. I enjoyed it. And also now you can play as the girl from Child of Light. Or, well, I think you play her as an old woman. Maybe you do both? Anyway, she's in it, and I haven't played it yet since she was added, so I'd like to play through it again, using her as a character. I'd also like to play... Oh! I'm the wolf. Ow! Hello! Hi, Vixie and all your viewers. You were playing,
Egg. Hi.
The Wolf Among Us, right? I think? Did you have a good time? Hello everyone, I am Zoe Gauntlet Queen. I'm usually that, or another one of my models that I made, but for Book Nooks, because we're reading a book today, I have my face, my real life face. It was Maximum Pain. Okay, then I saw someone else play that today, which is a funny coincidence then. Or well, saw them announce that they were gonna play it. But I hope you had I hope you had fun with Max Payne then. Yeah, I'm reading a book. I'm an artist, I make my own models and stuff, and I'm a variety streamer. Hi! I'm so real, I'm so fucking real today, it's crazy, honestly. But yeah, I hope you're all doing good. We are reading this, which is Yuri. It is a Yuri light novel, and we are. It's also spooky. There's spooky. We're encountering a monster right now. Ooh. Oh, I have to do some eggs, of course, for the people that just got in here. Let's see. So that is a Vixie, Glass Turf, Sneaky Phoenix,
Egg.
and Sheburger, and now also Kaja. Thank you all for the eggs. Love that your model is doing the point. Yeah, right? She's doing the point. Because I figured, like, I'm still, like, a VTuber, first and foremost, right? Like, the fucking hairs up here. Anyway, I'm still a VTuber first and foremost. Fucks with my hair, gang. Fuck. It's the weather. I blame the weather. I'm still a VTuber first and foremost, so I figured I should like have some kind of reminder for that. So I put a little model down there. Look. This is, I don't know. There is not enough snow. You're right. It's a problem. Anyway. Where were we? While watching those movements, the thing is captivating our protagonist. By just looking at it, she's becoming sick, but she can't look away. Oh, scary. While watching those movements, my mind gradually went blank, and I started to feel sick. Despite that, I still had the feeling that I had to see more. It felt similar to trying to remember a half-forgotten dream when you wake up in the morning. That niggling sense that you should remember it, and you almost can. It torments your brain. Ugh. I groaned, letting go of her arm. With a lurch, my body began to fall over, and I leaned on her jeans-covered leg for support. Jeans-covered leg? That's a weird... I mean, like, yeah, that's true, that is what it is, but, like, jeans-covered leg, that's a bit of a weird phrase. I think I would just say jeans. Would I? Cheese-covered leg? If you had jeans made of cheese, if it gets too warm, you could just eat them into jollards. That's very useful. It's hard to highlight the fact that she has legs and is also wearing jeans. No, that's fair, but I feel like at this point, if I would just say jeans, I would get it. Anyway, it's fine. It's not a big deal. Shorts, jeans. While I was taking shallow, repeated breaths, she plopped a hand down on my head. Hey, looking at that thing makes you feel super weird, huh? Ugh. What happens if you keep looking? I don't know. Yeah, I guess you wouldn't. Her tone made it sound like it was no big deal for her, but there was no way she was fine. I could hear her breathing quickly. This is rough. Phew. But I think I'm starting to get it. I wonder what's waiting at the end of this feeling. Ugh. I couldn't even respond properly anymore. Her breathing was getting more and more ragged, too. It felt like her body was swaying just a little, but I couldn't be sure whether it was her or me doing it. It's closer than before. We've gotta run. I just barely managed to get those words out. The white shadow had surprisingly little depth, so it was hard to grasp how far away it was, but it felt like it was closer than when I'd first encountered it. My vision wobbled. The scenery in front of me looked unreal, as if it were being projected on smoke floating in the air. My head felt heavy, and I was about to lose consciousness when the blonde-haired woman did a big wind-up and threw something. The shining, sparkling, angular, rock-like thing traced a parabola as it... Excuse me, are we talking about fucking math here? No. Bad book. No math, please. Thank you. as it traced a parabola as it flew towards the white shadow. The next instant, the white shadows twisted in place, then it vanished. Huh? I said, despite myself. What? I did it? From the way the blonde woman spoke, I wasn't the only one who was shocked here. Letting out a sigh, she looked down at me as I clung to her leg and cocked her head to the side. That just hit it, right? I nodded. You could say it hit it, or more like it dispelled the smoke-like stuff that white figure had been projected on entirely. What did you throw? A lump of rock salt. Rumor is it works on things like that, so I gave it a try. It really had an effect, huh? Color me surprised. Was it like spreading salt to exorcise demons? Spirits, I mean, it says. It seemed too commonplace, so I wasn't sure that it made sense to me. Whoa, she stumbled. Hi, Luigi. She stumbled, nearly falling over backwards. If I hadn't supported her, she'd have ended up on her back in the water. Having regained her balance, she turned back to me and grinned. Thanks. You okay? That sure felt gross, huh? Yeah. The sickening feeling, the dizziness, and the numbness still lingering in my limbs rapidly dissipated. That feeling like I could almost remember something was gone too. Can you stand? Oh, yeah. When I realized I was still clinging to her leg, still the leg, that's so funny. Just sitting there the whole time, and then like as someone's falling over, he's also like, no! I hurriedly moved away from her. I was a little unsteady on my feet when I stood, but it looked like I'd be fine. My soaked clothes were clinging to my skin, and it felt gross. Thanks for saving me. Don't worry about it, she said, waving it off generously, and then introduced herself. I'm Toriko Nishina. You? Oh, my name is Sorowo Kamikoshi. So listen, Sorowo. The place you came to the site from, is it close? Whoa, she was suddenly addressing me with no honorific. Though I was put off by how forward she was being, I nodded. Yeah, real close. Nice. Can you take me there? I was a bit lost, you know? Sure, to Toriko. When I addressed her with the same lack of honorific, her face broke into a beaming smile. Hold on a moment, I'm going to go pick that thing up. With that said, Toriko went rooting through the grass near where the rock salt fell. 2, which is chapter 2 of file 1 of volume 1. Is this Homestuck? When I opened the door and passed through it, the air around me changed in an instant. Oh, it's dark, Toriko mumbled behind me. The scene spread out before us was of an abandoned building in the evening. The roof and wallpaper inside were falling apart, and the gas stove and sink were blackened with dirt. Spread out on top of the dust-covered table were electrical bills, water bills, and other bills, all browned to the point of illegibility. Is this from AO3? It's not. It's from an actual book that is real and published and got a manga adaptation and got an anime adaptation. So no, it's just real. Oh wait, you mean because of the chapters? You're also doing a joke, sorry, right? Ow. When I turned around, the door behind us was already closed. It was the entrance/exit to the small living space behind a closed-out shop facing onto the shopping arcade. Normally, the door would have led to a narrow alley. This was the passage to the other side I'd found. Toriko looked around the room. Where is this place? Omiya, east of the station. What? In Saitama? I didn't think I'd walked that far. Where did you enter from, Toriko? Jimbocho, in Tokyo. There must be something weird going on in the space, with space in there. I should really put Otherside in the title, actually, of the stream, so that we can, other people can find it. It's like the Nether! Exactly! What a fun coincidence. Otherside picnic. When did it start? February 2017. I'm pretty sure Minecraft is older, but what about the Nether? Minecraft Nether. Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah, the Nether is older. So it's definitely inspired by the Nether. We can say with complete certainty. And the Nether is definitely not like inspired by anything else or whatever. It's probably not that they have some other shared inspiration. No. But it might be true, honestly. It could be. I mean, we know that that the writer of this series is definitely a gamer because they have a little pixel art font. That's not the same font I use, is it? No, I feel like I'd recognize that. No, it's different. I could hear noise from the shopping arcade outside, passing footsteps and the irritated ringing of bicycle bells. Each time the door to the pachinko parlor a few buildings down opened, I could hear the rattling of bells. Right, this was what was missing on the other side. The voices, the sound of cars, the slight hum of electrical apparatuses. There was none of it over there. Only the sound of wind making the trees sway, or the occasional cry of a bird or insect. No sound indicating human activity. That mind-numbing silence was something I had truly taken a liking to. It was quiet, peaceful. It was a quiet, peaceful world, one I had felt like I'd made all my own. But suddenly, there was a sound of something scraping the ground, and I cringed. Despite myself, it was the sound of Toriko pulling back one of the chairs beside the table. Plopping herself down on the dusty seat, she let out a breath. After some hesitation, I likewise pulled back a chair and carefully took a seat too. Across from me was Toriko's face in profile. I didn't know what she was thinking, but she had her elbow on the table and she was gazing at the gas stove. How many times have you been? Oh no, wait, this is our character. How many times have you been? When I spoke, Toriko blinked as if I was waking from a dream, then turned to face me. About 10 times, I guess? Seriously? This was only my 3rd time. That often. So that's why you were so knowledgeable, I said. Nah, I'm not particularly knowledgeable. I mean, you took out the kune-kune. I didn't know it was possible to do something like that. The kune-kune? That disgusting thing had a name like that? I don't know if that's his name, but there's rumors like that, I guess. Looks like you're the knowledgeable one here, now aren't you, Sadawa? I just had some background knowledge. I never thought anything like that actually existed. When I said that, it finally sunk in just how abnormal of an experience I'd just gone through. The reason I had known about it was I was doing it right. I was majoring in cultural anthropology at university. I was interested in modern-day true ghost stories as a research topic. Kune-kune was a ghost story that had started to be told, primarily on the internet, around 2003 or so, which is older than even the Nether! The narrator encounters a white shadow that wriggles unnaturally, and looking at it messes with their head. That was more or less how the story went. I felt like the entity I had just encountered closely resembled that ghost story. But it wasn't as though I had thought the kune-kune existed. Cultural anthropology viewed monsters and curses as a theme for study, but it didn't believe in their existence, only saw them as an aspect of human culture. Well, look at this then. Do you know what this is? Toriko fished through her pockets, pulling out something squarish. What she laid down on the table was a silver hexahedron with a length of about 5 centimeters on each side. Each face was smooth like a mirror and reflected the moon around us. If you don't know what a centimeter is like, 5 centimeters is like this. It's probably like this. So imagine a cube that's like this. Yeah, it's fucking math again. What is it with this book, dude? Now defining everything as pre and post nether. You could. I feel like you could like find the turning point where Minecraft became like really popular. I want to say that was still before the nether. Well, maybe not, but there was a point, right? Like some kind of Minecraft update where Minecraft became huge, the biggest. Chet, when did you first play Minecraft? I first played Minecraft when it was only creative mode. There was only creative mode back then. There were barely any. There were mobs, but they didn't do anything. There was no survival. I don't even remember if creepers were a thing yet. But yeah, you could probably like say like pre and post Minecraft popularity, you know? My internet cut out again, so you still have a job nuking Virgin Media Tower. Yes! Nice. I'm so excited, Jody. Also, fuck, dude. How's your internet still broken? They better fucking get back to you real fast about that. The last alpha version for me, nice. I played around when survival mode was introduced, before the water physics were changed. God, the old water physics were fucking stupid, dude. They were so good. If you don't know, the old water physics in Minecraft were basically, if there was a water block, it would try to fill every single block that it could get to at the same height as it, or lower. So if you, let's say there was like a lake, let's say there was a cave, right? Let's say there was a cave, and then you were digging up, and then there was a lake above the cave, so you dig into the lake, then the water would come down and literally just fill the entire lake. It would not like come down on the floor and then like puddle a little bit there. No, the whole cave would just become flooded. It was so shitty, but it was funny, and it didn't matter because you couldn't drown, you know? It was a very good time. Okay, so each face was smooth like a mirror and reflected the room around us. The stripped wallpaper, the fallen ceiling, and the scattered garbage were all reflected clearly. However, the only thing not reflected in it were the two of us. Huh? Even when I tried looking at a different angle or bringing my hand up close to it, nothing changed. What is this? It was on the ground where that thing from before vanished, Toriko said, picking up the hexahedron and scrutinizing it. How much do you think I could sell it for? No, wait, what even is that thing? I don't know. I wonder. I never found the rock salt I threw, so maybe it turned into this. This is absurd. A mirror that didn't reflect humans? Was that even possible? It was happening. Also, there were sponge blocks. There still are sponge blocks, but now they're a very rare and amazing prize that you win if you beat up a pufferfish or something. I don't know. I don't really play Minecraft the same way anymore these days. Or, well, not the same. I guess I do play Minecraft the same way, actually. I just don't play Minecraft the way that it... the optimal way to play it now, which is to go on grand adventures and kill all the bosses and get all the best armor and a bunch of enchantments. And I'm like, I like to build my little house, yay, you know? Make my little farm, yay! Oh, they added them back in? I haven't played since like 2012 or so. They did. Yes, they did. Was it really okay bringing it back here? Already? Oh, right, of course. Yeah, because I started an hour later. That's true. Ba-da-da-da-dum. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Ee. Ee. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Okay, stop. There we go. Wow, it's 9 p.m., which means it's time for me to do my estrogel, which means we're going to take a 20 or so minute break and listen to some music. During this time, please, if you guys have any medicine, please remember to take it. Remember to stay hydrated. Get some stretchies. No, get some snackies, stretch your leggies. I like how you said stop as we were expecting it to do it on its own. Hey, it's never too late to check to see if your phone suddenly develops sentience and obedience also. You know? Takes your medicine. No, Ellie! No, I need that! I need my medicine! Don't do that. Don't do that shit. I need that. I'm actually running kind of low. I should order more. But also, hi Ellie! How you doing? Well, Ellie, you can also use it. I've got another bottle. One more. So it's okay. I share gladly with you. I'm good. Enjoy the break. Okay, you too. But yes, we'll be back soon, and then we'll keep reading. Yay! I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. I think it's fun. I'm having fun. Yeah. See you guys soon.
place under the sun. There's a song on the Sahara wind that lifts you to your feet again. The dances on the clockwork stars that pulses through a beating heart. There's a song that sailors know, lost alone and far from home. Golden galleys, golden guns to find their place under the sun. There's a song on the Sahara wind that lifts you to your feet again. Dances on the clockwork stars that pulses through a beating night.
Hi. Hello everyone. Oops. Hello everyone. Hi. Let me just do a little bump on the socials, and then we're gonna put accessories back on, and then we can get back to reading. Hello. Bum. There and on Tumblr. There. Okay. Change some. No, we can keep listening to the midnight actually. They put my face in the stream. It's true. It's right here. You can look at it. Also, hi Rabbit. How you doing? Ken, Rabbit, BVT, get a shout out. because they deserve it. Because they're very, very cool and an extremely talented artist. But hi, welcome back from the break, everyone. I hope you all had a good one. Or if you were here, if you just got here and you we're here, and you weren't here before the break, then hello. Welcome, welcome. This one. And then this one, which is the hardest to put on. Like that. Nope. No, 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 come on. No, no!
My wife is suffering.
My wife is suffering? That's no good. Who's doing this to my wife? Since when do I have a wife? This is wonderful news. I'm so happy. Here. Almost done. And there we go. Cool. So, hi everyone. Hi everyone. Let me just do those little eggies that were redeemed. Specifically, Kai Fuller and Tringerine. Thank you. I wonder if I could get some video filters going to reduce the fuzzies. I'm just gonna try now. Let's see, face cam filters, audio video filters, and then noise gate. That sounds good. No, wait, that's audio, isn't it? Yeah, that'll be audio. Speaking of noise, ze zullen dus lanceren vuurwerk buiten. Dat is lekker kut. Even kijken hoor. Wat is upwards compression? Doet dit überhaupt iets? Ik denk dat dit ook audio is, dus dat is niet relevant. Even kijken. Is this just all audio filters? This all looks like it's audio filters. That's not what we need. I will get your egg later, Big Iron Juliet. Just give me a moment. Was it audio? Okay, what about this thing? That's a lot of plugins. I don't know what any of this is. Let me just look at the effect plugins instead. Sharpen? No! Yippee! Well... A little bit kind of helps. Like it doesn't reduce the grain, but it does just make the image just a little bit sharper. You know? So I feel it's still like a win, I'd say. Frexel! Hi! Good to see you. How are you? Hi, hi, hi. Hope you're doing good. Oh! Sippy. I'll take a sippy, thank you. Okay. You come to vibe, nice. Well, I'll be reading again soon, so then you can vibe all good. If I remember, I'll like look up a tutorial or something later to try to get rid of this grain. It might just be a lighting, like I feel like if I do this. I feel like that might have reduced the grain for a little bit. I don't know. And also, hello Ori Planet, welcome to you as well. Enough about that shit. Let me get Big Iron Juliet's egg. And also, no other eggs, that's the only one. So, thank you very much. There we go. Love the accessories, thank you. I love chokers and a whole bunch of stuff on the arms and stuff. I wonder why Zoe Gunlock Queen might like things on the arms when the arms are made more significant and stuff. What a wild thing. What a strange concept. Button Shiro, hello. Okay, so we are reading this Otherside Picnic. And we are going to continue putting eggs on stream. Which this one is from Button Shiro. Thank you very much. Why Zoe enjoy arm thing? I don't know why, but I've always, since like early times, I've always enjoyed characters that did a lot of punching, characters that did special things with their arms and stuff. It's just like always been a thing that I like for some reason. Who's to say? Who knows? Okay, let's go. Wait, do I have to put on
Egg.
I don't really want to put on this the spooky playlist. I think it's silly. I'm putting on the chill playlist. Ori Planet, I'll put your egg on stream also because you guys don't want me to read, I think. There we go, that's the second egg stick done. Very nice. Okay, so we are going to continue reading this. Blackrock Shooter changed her brain chemistry forever. You're not wrong. That is like the big turning point is strength from Blackrock Shooter. Like, if I look further back, there are more characters that I loved that did punching and specific arm things and stuff. So I know it's not strength from Blackrock Shooter specifically, exclusively. I just know that it's the big one because... no, I'm not gonna... Okay, hold on. Can I... okay, fine. No, I'm scared I'm gonna mess up the camera tracking and stuff. Hold on. Hand cam. Alright, you guys can't see that because... Fuck. Okay, I can't show you. Anyway, I've got a Blackrock Shooter figure here. Specifically, Strength. She's the one, and she's really big metal gauntlets. It is fucking awesome. Also, her story's good too. So she is the one, the big one. Strength probably possessed you when you watched it, or however that world works. That checks out. I think that's what happened. So we're reading a horror Yuri manga. No. Light novel, but it did get a manga adaptation also, which I also own some books from. It's called Otherside Picnic. We are reading it for this stream only, and we are not going to continue reading it. If you want to know what else happens in the story, you have to support the original author. Okay, here we go. So they just escaped from the other side, which is a scary world, where they defeated some sort of thing and got a cube, and the cube is reflective, but not humans. It doesn't reflect those. Ooh, how weird. Was it really okay bringing it back here? Though I felt uneasy, I couldn't take my eyes off the object in Toriko's hand. I thought I'd understood that the other side was an abnormal place, but the little hexahedron in front of me was an undeniable piece of physical evidence that shook my sense of what was real all over again. Did they have a picnic there? Not yet. Maybe later. I will say also, to those who don't know, this book gets its name, as well as some themes and elements, from the book Roadside Picnic, which is a very different story. I don't think it's Yuri. I don't even think it's Yaoi, although, you know, up to interpretation, I guess. But where there is an exclusion zone, where there are all kinds of weird, unexplainable phenomenon, and I'm not gonna tell you what the twist is, but the twist is really fun, and I like it. That's why it's called Otherside Picnic, is because that book is called Roadside Picnic. You know? And that is what Stalker is based on. That's true. Yes. If Blackrock Shooter had fucked up in episode 2, you'd be angrily throwing macaroons at People Queen. Thundery Beast Hun, thank you very much for following. Welcome. But yes, well, okay, Kirakat, I don't know about that, because like I said, I was already into punching and gauntlets and stuff before Blackrock Shooter. It's just that Blackrock Shooter was the tipping point. I don't think I would be angrily throwing macaroons at People Queen. Maybe I would be angrily punching macaroons at People Queen, because the punching would still be there. Anyway, not important. It was about a month ago that I first found the Otherside. Chasing the site of a true ghost story, I was investigating places people would have called haunted. I'd enjoyed playing at ruin exploration since my high school days, calling it fieldwork, as I dove into all sorts of suspicious locations. Now, if we're being literal about it, I was illegally... Thank you. Now, if we're being literal about it, I was illegally trespassing, but anyway, while I was doing that, I found something inside this abandoned building, a door that led to an impossible meadow. First, I propped the door open so it couldn't shut, then I took 2, then 3 steps in, then rushed back out. With just that, I returned home in a daze, unable to believe what I'd seen. When I recovered and made a second go at it, I tried a bit harder, and I went 5 meters inside. My foot caught in the mud, I tripped, got covered in gunk, and then beat a hasty retreat. I love the phrase, beat a hasty retreat. So fun. The third time, today, I came dressed in proper outdoor clothes before going to the other side. Making use of my experience in ruin exploration, I wore warm clothes and shoes that were easy to move in. I was carrying too little equipment to be engaged in sports, and was dressed too lightly to be going mountain climbing, so I stood out pretty bad on the train. If I were seen walking around at night, I might have been mistaken for a burglar. Regardless, that was how I mustered the courage to make a serious exploration of the other side, upon which I encountered the Kune, and I nearly died. Beat a hasty retreat and get into a lot of scrapes, both top-tier English phrases. They're both very good, but beat a hasty retreat has that beautiful rhyming scheme to it, you know? I like it a lot, it's very fun. Get into a lot of scrapes is also very good. I also like, let's blow this popsicle stand. Popsicle stand. That's also a very good one to me. Hey. While I was deep in thought, Toriko suddenly leaned over the table and peered closely at me. What? Why did you know about that place, Sodawo? The other side, you mean? Is that what you call it? Who calls it that? I just came up with it on my own. Yeah, the other side was just a name I'd made up for it. In comparison to the surface world I had known all along, it was in the shadows. On the other side. That was about all it meant. Though, really, I was the one who wanted to ask how she had known about the other side. I looked at Toriko again. Just who exactly was she? Toriko, you... Sodawo, did you see anyone else over there? When she asked that, speaking over me, it killed my initiative. I didn't. You're the first person I've met on the other side. Oh yeah? Toriko lowered her eyes, leaning back in her chair. Are you looking for someone? Yeah, kinda. Right, you mentioned a name earlier. Satsuki-san, was it? When I spoke that name, at that very moment... The sudden, loud noise made both of us jump. Did you like that? Did you like my fun little Foley work there? It had come from the back door to the abandoned building, the door to the other side, which we had just come through. It seemed someone on the other side had struck the door. The noise came just once, and that was it. Total silence followed. Maybe she decided to see what was up, because Toriko quietly got up from her seat, but I was the one closest to the door. I blocked Toriko with one arm, standing up. What are you going to do? Not voicing the words, I simply mouthed the question at Toriko, stepping silently towards the door as I did. I brought my face close to the peephole. I recalled there were ghost stories where, in a situation like this, someone would be peering through on the other side, half expecting to encounter someone's bloodshot eye. I hesitantly peeked through the hole. Blue. The other side of the peephole was pure blue. A world of blue that was neither the blue of the sea nor the blue of the sky. What was this? Hey, Sotaro, how's it look? Toriko asked in a hushed tone, and I turned back to answer her. I don't know. I can't see a thing. It's just blue. The moment I said that, Toriko's eyes went wide. Get back! Even as she said that, she was undoing the zipper on her jacket, showing her hand inside, and out came the black luster of a handgun. Hold on. This was getting out of hand. No, it's fine. Seeing my expression, Toriko raised a hand as if trying to calm me. It's just a Makarov. I picked it up. Oh, it's just you know the specific name of the gun. It's fine. Where? I've got a spare. I'll give it to you next time, Sotaro. For now, though, it's dangerous here. A Russian handgun? Suspicious. Well, I mean, maybe that's in reference to Otherside Picnic. Or Roadside Picnic, rather. I found it, smile. Where would we be without gun lesbians? We'd be punching everyone, duh. I love Toriko's response to everyone being like, is that a gun? Being to explain what kind of gun it is. It's very funny. I don't need it, and you're the one who's dangerous here, I was about to say, but I wasn't reckless enough to argue with a woman carrying a gun. I quietly backed down. Toriko held the gun in both hands as she approached the door. I didn't know enough to tell if she was skillful or not, but the way she moved looked kind of pretty to me. Pressing herself to the door, she peered through the hole. She stayed like that for a while, not moving. Toriko-san? Trying not to agitate her, I called out in a quiet voice, and Toriko responded in a flat tone. It was blue on the other side, right? Yeah. Okay then. Letting out a sigh, Toriko lowered the gun, slowly turning the doorknob. Wait, what? Before I could stop her, Toriko opened the door wide. The dusty air flowed in. Was it a field of blue? No. Was it the unexplored fields of the other side? No again. There was nothing there, but a simple back alley. Huh? I rushed over, leaning out the door. The endless expanse of the other side, it was gone. A narrow, dirty alley between the buildings. A case of beer with empty bottles in it, a garbage pail, an abandoned bicycle covered in rust. Easygoing Hawaiian music drifting in from the arcade. It was hopelessly banal, a scene that was unequivocally of the surface world. What? I stood there, in a daze. It was gone. My other side. Looks like we can't use this entrance anymore. Wait, what's wrong? Looking at my face, Toriko asked in a confused voice. Hey, hold on, Sotaro. Toriko tried to talk to me, but I just kept shaking my head. I was about ready to cry. It had been a completely undeveloped playground, my own secret place, and now I felt like it had been snatched away before my very eyes. Don't make that face. I'll take you to the place I went in through, okay? Toriko said, sounding troubled. Then she walked over and reached out to stroke my head. A pat on the head? What was she? Some sleazy playboy? I was ready to clobber her. Don't act like you don't like it. I guess she doesn't right now. It's not the time. Later. Yeah. Oh no, the dangerous supernatural stuff is gone and now I'm stuck with this cute girl. Ooh. That's all I have to show for it, is this cute girl that I met. Anyone want to catch me up to speed? Well, PS2 Wars is basically we find girl about to die in a scary place, scary other world, and then a girl helps her, and she throws some salt at a shadow creature thing, and the shadow creature dies, and the salt becomes a cube, or maybe the shadow creature becomes the cube. Who knows? The shadow creature is also white. It's like a white shadow, and then they leave, and then they are in a room, and that's it. That's you're up to speed, basically. Is this fanfic or original content? It is original content. As you can see, it's a real book. Even as I was miffed at her internally, I opened my mouth to speak. That's fine, but there was a whine in my voice. I cleared my throat and tried to... What? Oh, Blanc, hi! Thank you so much for the subscription. Thank you. Can you get this shit out of my face? Is this gonna leave? Thank you. Hi. I think I saw the first episode of the anime. Sorry to interrupt. No, it's okay. Yeah, it's got an anime. It's true. And it's very nice. It's also got a manga. Anyway. It's fine. I'm alright. When I pulled my head away, Toriko meekly lowered her hand. In silence, the two of us looked at the threshold of the back entrance. There were no clues there that might allow us to speculate as to what had been there just now. If it's blue, is that dangerous? It made you pull a gun. I've heard about it. In that world, there's all sorts of dangerous stuff, but they say the most dangerous stuff is when it turns blue, Toriko responded, the gun hanging at her side at about thigh level. Why? Does something attack you? I wouldn't know. I don't have any experience with it either, but Toriko suddenly let out an exhausted sigh. I'm going to call it a day. I'd like to meet again. Give me your contact info, she said as she stowed the gun in her jacket and raised the zipper. Was it wise to tell her, this mystery woman with a gun? You tell me, Toriko. I don't know my own number. Can you just check your phone? Didn't bring it. I wouldn't want to drop it on the other side. Ah! I panicked, pulling my own waterlogged phone out of my pants pocket. Shoot, I'd forgotten. When I fell into that tasteless water, of course my phone was submerged too. With a silent prayer, I pressed a button. There was a momentary flicker on the screen, then it powered on. Thank goodness, I thought, but that relief didn't last. What is this? Looking at the screen, I let out a groan. The familiar icons and apps were nowhere to be seen. My phone, which had been dipped in the waters of the other side, had been reduced to a worthless machine that showed strange designs and a mysterious text that looked like Japanese but was completely indecipherable. Well, it's just like Persona 5. The anime is definitely the weakest adaptation, but the novels are excellent. I liked the anime, but yeah, I did vibe more with the manga as well. I enjoyed the anime just because I don't know. I enjoyed the strangeness of it, but I did feel like it didn't tell the story that well, you know? I haven't read all the manga yet though. I've read the first volume. I have the second volume. I specifically didn't read it because I wanted to read this one first. Chapter 3. 3. I encountered... What did I watch the other day? Right. Over Christmas, I watched several Christmas Carol adaptations, including the Mickey's Christmas Carol adaptation. Mickey's Christmas Carol, that's what it's called. It's not even about him. Stupid name. God, I hate Mickey Mouse. And at one point, Goofy, who plays Marley... Shh, phone. Goofy, who plays Marley, shows up, and he's like, "You're gonna be visited by 3 ghosts," and he looks at us 2 fingers. I think that's funny. Like, that joke isn't even, it's not pointed out or anything, it's just something he does, and nobody remarks on it. I think it's funny. And I will take a sippy. Thank you very much, Akai. Rouge, please, okay? I'll put her here, I guess. There we go. Moving on. It's gonna be a door to darkness, Christmas, Sora. Christmas Sora, that's his name, okay. There's a bed on my shoulder. It's my friend. Okay, so chapter 3. I encountered Toriko Nishina again a week later in the university's cafeteria. In between 3rd and 4th period, I had just gotten out of the lecture for American history. It's a capital I, so I read it as I, but it's one. It's so bad with numbers. And I was eating lunch. Out of nowhere, someone pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. Wow, how rude, I thought as I looked up. There was a face I'd never forget, even if I tried. That blonde woman who was in illegal possession of a firearm, waving at me. Heya! I continued chewing on my chicken with grated daikon sauce, staring at Toriko, unable to say a word. Today, unlike last time, she was in normal clothes, the kind you might wear around town, a white blouse with a long blue pleated skirt. The only thing she was carrying on her was a leather tote bag. It was a simple outfit, but her looks were good to begin with, so she looked exceptionally good in it. As for me, on the other hand, I was just wearing the usual sort of thing you might wear when heading straight to class from a nearby apartment, then going straight home when you finished. It was a cotton shirt and whatever jeans were closest on hand at the time. I was carrying a cloth bag I'd been fond of since high school. There was a pretty big gap in our usual appearances. She was in normal people clothes. Toriko stared straight at me with her sparkling eyes. Don't you have any friends to eat with? Would you leave me alone? When I got angry and responded despite myself, Toriko raised an eyebrow and got this happy look on her face. Oh, crap, I didn't mean to respond. I hated people who were good at teasing others like this. People who thought it was okay to make fun of people for having no friends, or being unsociable, or being gloomy. Seriously, I wish people like that would leave me alone. There were people like that in high school, but when I ran into them right away at university too, it was exhausting. I'd done my best to keep my distance from that nonsense, and it led to me being in May of my 2nd year without being able to make a single friend. I looked at her blonde hair, feeling exasperated. It was pretty for a dye job. That pissed me off. What was she doing here? How did she know where I'd been? Sure, I'd reluctantly told her what university I attended, but was she able to track me down with just that? I hadn't given her my number, my email, my address, nothing. Scary. I gotta say, like, the animosity she feels towards her at the start, it comes off much better here than it does in the anime. Looking while I draw drawings. Enjoy your drawings. I hope they go. You do a good job. You have fun, etc. I'm sure they're really good. What was she doing here? How'd she... I read this already. Let me ask you one more time, the mystery woman, Toriko said. I immediately knew she was talking about the other side. It was the only thing the two of us had in common, after all. Why don't you go by yourself? I asked. Let's go together, can't we? It's not a matter of can or can't. What would we go there to do? The thing we brought back last time, that weird mirror lump? There's this person who wants it, you see? Oh, that. It was a mysterious thing, so fair enough. Maybe someone out there would want it. They can want it all they like. There's nothing we can do about it. You only picked it up by coincidence. It wasn't coincidence. I know a way to get more. A way? Wait, you can't mean... As I was feeling a bad premonition, Toriko leaned in closer. The kune-kune, was it? Let's hunt that thing. Huh? Huh? I couldn't help but raise my voice. Hunted? That freaky thing that drove a person mad just looking at it? Was this woman an idiot? The money's good, boss. But I half stood up, then realized we were starting to draw attention. I sat back down and spoke to her in a quiet voice. Are you for real? You bet. I went out and bought a bunch of seeds. Look. Toriko rolled a lump of rock salt across the table. See? Let's find happiness together. What a fucking gay-ass thing to say. That's amazing. That is so good. I love it. That is so good. She is kind of creepy in a supernatural Yuri kind of way. Kind of like that's like the book is about or something. It's kind of perfect. God, that's gay. You're serious? I whispered, dumbstruck, and by the time I came back to my senses, I was shaking my head hard. No way, no how. I don't want to go anywhere near that thing ever again. I nearly died, you know? Besides, would that rock salt even work? Okay, sure, it did vanish when she threw the rock salt at it last time, but still. Toriko lowered her eyes pathetically, bringing a hand to her chest. I could die out there on my own. That's why I want you to come with me, Sorowo. Why me? Because you seem trustworthy. How? We only met once. How can you know? Today makes 2 times. Smooth. When my brow furrowed, Toriko smiled. You managed to fix your phone? Huh? It was broken before, right? Not yet, no. I don't have the money. I didn't have anyone to call me either, so I'd spent the whole week trying not to think about it, and it was still the same as before. How much do you think one of those mirror stones is worth? Toriko asks, leaning in as if to tell me a secret, so I reluctantly lent her an ear. How much? The price she named left me flabbergasted. I could buy myself all the smartphones I wanted and still have change left over. As I stared back at her vacantly, Toriko grinned. We'll split it even. 50-50. Seriously? Yeah, she was serious. We headed out of the university together, getting on the Saikyo line at Minami Yono. Along the way, I got depressed, trying to come up with ways to talk to someone I didn't really know, but surprisingly, Toriko didn't try to start a conversation. We stood next to the train door, looking out the window in silence. It seemed that she was in a good mood, because she was kind of smiling. It didn't feel particularly awkward. I'd been expecting her to be annoying and keep trying to talk with me, so I felt a little let down. Oh, this hot girl isn't talking to me. Even though I have no idea what I'd say to her. Haha, fancy seeing you here. Haha, wanna grow old and die together? Haha, just kidding. This is so funny that she's just like, how the fuck am I supposed to talk to this lady she's not even gonna try? That's really funny to me. It was easier this way, yes, but this only made me more curious about her. There was a lot I wanted to ask her, but how could I bring it up? It had been a seriously long time since I'd been interested in another person, so my conversation skills had gone to pieces. After riding on the shaky train, a lot of uhs and said only inside my head, we changed to the Harunoichi line at Ikebukuro, and alighted at Ochanomizu, with me ultimately never having said a word. The place Toriko led me to was a building in Jimbochu. It was a tall, thin building with a bunch of shops in the back of Booktown. Booktown? That's like Book Nook. That's where we are. This is the Book Nook. Yay, we're in Booktown, everyone. Yeah, like from Yakuza, sure. Yakuza takes place in a real life location, by the way, just so you guys know. 10 floors in total. Here? I looked at the building dubiously. Is this really okay? I'm telling you, it's fine. Let's go. Watching Toriko's back as she... Ow. I mean, not ow. It's just over this one. I don't mind. I'm gonna take my book to the book down. Gonna take my book to the book down road. I'm gonna read till I haven't really listened to Lil Nesh that much, so I don't really know how the song goes. But I like it. It's good. That's terrifying if we're anywhere near the events of this story. That is actually, I mean, we're fine as long as we don't enter the other side. We'll be okay. And people tend not to enter the other side by accident, you know, so we'll be fine. We'll be okay, I think. Watching Toriko's back as she headed into the building after that brief answer, I grew hesitant. I wasn't good with her type. I felt like I'd been targeted by a delinquent. Fuck yeah. I hate this bunch so much, I can't wait to be rid of... Wait, why isn't she talking to me? The reason I begrudgingly followed her, even as I thought that, was that I didn't want to lose my connection to the other side. Ever since I discovered its existence, the other side had been everything to me. I mean, wouldn't that be true for anyone? If you found a secret world all your own, where you could be free from all the bother, the entanglements, nuisances of life, who wouldn't want to go there? Or maybe I was wrong about that. Either way, it wasn't that I couldn't have resisted Toriko. Not at all. Okay, fine. Whatever happens, happens. Wait, no, I'm gonna reread that actually and be different. Either way, it wasn't that I couldn't have resisted Toriko. Not at all. Oh, fine. Whatever happens, happens. I want to play a TTRPG with this exact theme and vibe. Don't worry. I've got just a thing for you. It is called Yeek. Yeek literally has like... Also like, ooh, we're gonna go into a special world through an elevator and secret entrance. A parallel world. No, but it would be fun if there was a... Oh wait, you said TTRPG. You said TTRPG, sorry. No, playing a TTRPG like this would be really fun. I feel like Monster of the Week could be used for this. I feel like Monster of the Week would be like pretty good system for a story like this with like an other world and stuff. Yeah, no, Yeek is fucked up. I've seen like some people try to defend Yeek and like, no, I don't think we should defend that. Monster Week is what I ran for my game. Nice. I've played Monster of the Week 2 sessions, with like a small, just like a 2-shot, and I really enjoyed it. I'd love to play it again. It was really good for storytelling. And my character was an occultist who did like magic shit with like artifacts and stuff. It was, oh god, she was so cool. She was like an asshole, but she was like nice. You know, she was like a nice, she just didn't know how to express her feelings, but so she seemed like an asshole, but she cared, and she was really cool, and she didn't have any issues. Don't talk to her about her issues, you know? And her name was Elizabeth Carter, or Elizzy. And she was so cool, and she had a van. That's why she was called Carter. I mean, that wasn't why she was called Carter. It was I named her Carter in the terms of the story. That was not why she was called that, obviously. But she had a camper van, an RV. She had an RV, and the RV was so cool, and there's all kind of magic in there. It was so cool. I love TTRPGs. I did a TTRPG today. I ran a one-shot on a space station that was assaulted by assaulted by marauders, and then the players had to escape, and I got lipstick on my teeth again. Anyway, I like TTRPGs, they're good. Anyway, continuing on. I finally steeled myself, stepping into the building. We passed through a grimy entrance and got in the elevator. When the door closed, Toriko pressed the buttons for the 4th floor. The button, singular. We didn't get off when the elevator reached the 4th floor, and she pushed the button for the 2nd. Next, it was the 6th. Like she was inputting a secret code, she pressed the buttons for floors in a ridiculous order. This was the kind of thing you'd get upset at a child doing while they were fooling around. But Toriko's face was dead serious. What are you doing? If you press the elevator's buttons in a certain order, you can go to another world, Toriko answered without her hands stopping. Knowing you, you've heard that story before, right, Sororo? I have, I nodded. Yeah, I definitely read an urban legend like that online. It sounds kind of childish, was my first impression, so it didn't really draw my attention. I assume a child discovered this because they were fooling around. However, the trend in online stories about how to reach another world had stuck with me. Who could have known I'd be taking part in one of them? 3rd floor, 2nd floor, 10th floor. The elevator busily moved up and down. Each time it stopped at the designated floor, Toriko immediately pressed the door close button. The 5th floor. When the door opened, a woman rushed towards us from the opposite end of the hall. Her hair was long and black, and her face wasn't visible. That was because before I could get a closer look, Toriko pressed the door close button. The person just now was trying to get on, you know? I said, faulting her despite myself, but Toriko just shrugged it off. She always tries to get on the 5th floor. Always? On the 5th floor, a woman is guaranteed to attempt to get on, but you absolutely must not let her. What? That's scary. Scary? This book has scary in it? I didn't know. Chet, I don't know if I can keep going. I'm too scared now. I'm going to bed. Oh, I had a nightmare, so I have to wake up now and keep reading. I'm the fucking scared, chat. Anyway. I do just love that. It's not her saying that's scary, it's her thinking, what? That's scary. It's just so funny to me that she thinks it as well. Miyazawa's other novel, Side by Side Dreamers, is also really good. It's only 1 volume, not a serial. That means it's easier to read. Is it also Yuri? Tell me more. As I keep reading. 1st floor, 3rd floor, 8th floor. The corridors of the building that I saw through the gap in the opening and closing door changed like a slideshow. 2nd floor, 7th floor, 10th floor. Under the flickering fluorescent lights, a door with ground glass windows opened, and a pair of women's shoes came out into the hall. A man in a suit who was walking backwards came to a stop and started to turn. The elevator door closed just before he could, and the scene in that hall was cut off. I gradually came to realize how bizarre things were. We were traveling back and forth between a limited number of floors, and yet I never saw the same floor twice. Each time the door opened, an unfamiliar hall stretched out before my eyes. Hey, you figured it out? Toriko cast me a sidelong gaze and smiled. Who did she think she was, looking at me like she understood everything? When I glared back at her, Toriko blinked, as if she were confused. I felt like the pace with which the door opened and closed picked up a little. Looking at the control panel and the floor number display, I was shocked. I couldn't read the numbers. They could have been written in familiar Arabic numerals, and yet at some point, those had been swapped out for some writing system I didn't know. The elevator finally came to a stop after some time had passed. When the door opened, it was pitch dark. I couldn't see a thing. The light flooding out of the elevator looked like a smushed quadrilateral shape. Can we fucking just stop it with the goddamn math in this book? What the hell? Oh, that Side by Side Dreamers is a lucid dreaming Yuri. Oh, that sounds very interesting. I might have to pick that one up as well. I hope it got an official translation. Math is scary. That is so true. Also, some of us might be familiar with a thing called Gmod Elevator, or whatever the first one was called, and then also VRChat Elevator, which is a thing in Gmod and in VRChat. That is basically this part of the story where you get on an elevator and then the elevator just goes to random floors, and you see random things happen. And sometimes the things affect the elevator you're in, sometimes they don't. There's a lot of different things that you can see, and it's all super fun and super interesting, and you can do it in multiplayer, and I recommend that you do. It is so much fun to get a group of friends together in either VR chat or Gmod and go in the elevator and just look at the things you see and react to it. It is so much fun. I really recommend you do that. I'm pretty sure we did it on a VR chat stream at some point. It's just, oh god, it's so much fun, chat. You should do it. You should do it. Write it down that you're gonna do it after the stream because it's fun. Get some friends together and go do the elevator thing. It's fun. It's so surreal. It's so weird. It's a little scary sometimes, but never too scary. For me, at least. I don't know what your tolerance is. But yeah, it's super fun. I felt... Nope, read that already. Toriko, you sure this is okay? Toriko had her head cocked to the side. Huh? Did I mess it up? Huh? It was never this dark before. Whoa. Whoa. Weird. Wonder if it's night on that side. Though I was exasperated by her less than reassuring response, I leaned out the door. My head shot back with incredible speed. I tottered backwards, trying to retreat, and my back struck the elevator wall. Close it! The moment I shouted that, Toriko punched the door close button with her fist. In the instant before the door shut, I heard the chilling skitter of legs, and I thought I saw claws. Muscular fingers ended in thick, split claws with a ridge in them. It left only a momentary impression, and then the door shut out the darkness. The silent elevator shuddered, then surged into motion again, rising. And yeah, I'm such a pretty girl. Thank you. Hi. The silent elevator. What was that? I finally managed to ask, tripping over my tongue a bit. Did you see that just now, Toriko? When I turned my head to look at her, Toriko had drawn her gun and had pointed at the door. What? What? Don't startle me! That's my line. Could you not pull a gun like it's perfectly normal? It's not like I have it on me all the time. It's just... I was planning to meet with you today. Why would you need it to meet me? It's okay, calm down. It's okay. The last part was in English for some reason. Not okay. I mean, where did you pull that from? Do you keep it naked inside your tote bag? Tote bag? Tote bag? Sort of, the way you talk is funny. Huh? How? You're in a hurry to make a witty retort. I don't know, you sound like one of those people making a fuss on Twitter. It says dot question mark exclamation point question mark exclamation point question mark exclamation point. I'm also empty. Just kidding, I'm fine. While I was left unable to speak as I was struck by a whirling mix of confusion, shame, and anger, the elevator came to a stop once more. As we watched, the door parted to the left and right. Toriko gave a satisfied nod. Good, we made it this time. Outside the door was the roof. On the other side of a floor made of broken concrete tiles, there was a waist-height iron fence, and above it a cloudy sky. Let's go. Toriko stepped out. Hey, is this really okay? It's okay, maybe. I don't think so. I was super intimidated, but being left behind by Toriko was an even more frightening proposition. Steering myself, I headed out. Moving away from the elevator, we approached the edge of the building. The clammy wind made my hair sway. The iron fence around the roof was rusted, and I wasn't about to try leaning on it. Touching it slightly, just to confirm it wasn't going to suddenly give way, I peered over the edge. Beneath the hallowed sun that cast a somewhat blurred light, a field of dull yellow grass spread out as far as the eye could see. The vast plain was uneven, appearing to rise and fall like there were waves. Here and there was seemingly artificial structures, buildings covered in ivy, massive stones scattered about haphazardly. What looked like the wireframe of a tower for carrying electrical lines poked its head out from the other side of the dark woods. Were those train tracks cutting across the marsh? Even further away, there was a range of low mountains. This girl leaving me is worse than the prospect of being killed by a monster. This is gay. What do you think? Or what do you think? Toriko said, sounding proud for some reason. Well, looks like we're not in Jimbocho anymore, at least. I turned around, surveying the roof. There were no stairs, only the elevator door. How do we get down? Over here. When I followed Toriko, there was a ladder at a break in the fence. Huh? We're going down this? Are you afraid of heights by any chance? Well, no, but I was fine with looking over the edge of the roof, but if I had to climb down the side of the building using a rusty ladder, that was another matter. That rhymes. It'll be fine. I mean, I've never fallen, Toriko said rather irresponsibly. I glared at her. I'm gradually starting to see how you operate, Toriko. What do you mean how I operate? You think you can just worry about trouble after it happens, don't you? It may not seem like it, but I'm thinking about all sorts of things. Like girls. Are you afraid of heights? I wasn't until now. That was me going up the Eiffel Tower when I was like 6. Why is my nose so itchy? What the fuck? Anyway. Oh, you are? While I was hesitating to say more, Toriko stepped onto the ladder. I'll go on ahead. If I'm down below, you won't have to worry so much about falling. Because you'll catch me? Because you'll catch me? There. You're more optimistic than I expected. I only meant I could at least cushion your fall. No thanks. If I come falling down, get out of the way. The creaking ladder was scary, but I somehow managed to get down to the ground without falling and turning Toriko into a pancake, or having her dodge out of the way and getting turned into one myself. It's a ladder to play Snake Eater backwards when you climb down. Oh, just like the urban legends! Oh my gosh! One of the few things that the anime does better, I think, is really express that this is a 10-story rusty ladder they're climbing. Yeah, no, that part in the story, as someone with fear of heights, no, I don't like it. While clenching and unclenching my tense, tired fingers, I looked around the area. I was like gonna read it as arena, that's not right, area. There was black dirt exposed in the area around the building, a narrow footpath stretching out into the tall grass. I'd noticed this while descending the ladder, but this building was both similar and dissimilar to the one we'd initially entered. For a start, it had no walls, just pillars, on the floors and ceilings of each level. It was a hollowed-out ruin, with only the skeletal frame remaining. There weren't any stairs or even a shaft for the elevator. Okay, so where did we come from then? There was no floor on the first floor, just the bare earth. Toriko walked over towards the drum that had been left by one of the pillars. When I followed her and peeked inside, the inside of the drum was scorched black. There was a bunch of concrete blocks piled up haphazardly nearby, perhaps having been used in place of chairs. Did you light a fire here? Before, yeah. If you're climbing a ladder that tall, remember to use a harness if you aren't a trained professional. That is very important. Generally, if you're gonna climb something really tall, you should use a harness. There was a rusty brown shovel leaning against the opposite side of the pillar. Toriko took the shovel in hand, thrusting it into the ground in the corner of the mountain of concrete bricks. Blocks, actually. She dug in 2, 3 times, quickly finding whatever it was she was after. Crouching down, she pulled something wrapped in a white vinyl bag out of the ground. Here! Huh? What's this? Presented with some unknown object, I hesitated. Toriko wasn't pulling back the package, though, so I reluctantly took it, unwrapping the bag. I stared down at the thing I had unwittingly accepted. It's a gun. That's obvious, just looking at it. A Makarov. That's what... Oh, no, wait. A Makarov? That's what she'd called it? It was the same kind as Toriko was carrying. The bag also contained a cardboard box filled with bullets. Why are you giving this to me? She's got a gun now. They're gun lesbians together. Yay! I promised last time, didn't I? I think you'll need a weapon. It's scary. I don't know how to use it. I can't shoot. I don't need it. There were a whole bunch of counter arguments that popped into my head, and yet not one of them left my lips. That was because the thing I'd seen... Willwall6969, nice. Hello, thank you very much for following. Welcome. That was because the thing I'd seen in the elevator was seared into my memory. Some clawed thing skidding towards me from deep inside that dark floor. I didn't know what it really was, but if that thing came at us again, I'll take it. Toriko nodded, then filled in the hole quickly. From there, she taught me how to load bullets, and how to disengage the safety. Based on what she was telling me, it wasn't all that difficult, though I had no confidence I'd hit anything if I fired. Do you want to test it? No, that's fine, it's scary. If you suddenly try to shoot when you're in a situation where you need to, you're going to fail. I said it's fine. I re-engaged the safety, and after some hesitation, I stuffed it in my bag. Sorry, I wish I had a holster or something for you, but this gun's just the thing I picked up. Where? This side. They're just lying around occasionally. Maybe the military came through here. I've never seen them though. I'd considered the possibility that other people had come into this world, but the military? If so, wasn't it possible we'd suddenly get shot? While I was feeling less and less sure about all this, Toriko re-shouldered her tote bag. Okay, let's go, she said cheerily. Yeah. We walked away from the building and into the grass. Our destination, the place I'd met Toriko. Our goal, Kune hunting. Let's see, we've gone... Oh, yeah, we can keep going. I think. Well, yeah, we can keep going. I think these characters are very fun, yeah. I think it's funny that you just, like, start explaining the actual gun. Because I mean, I just picture a pistol. It's just a pistol in my head. It's white, and the grip is this like brown. Like it's got like brown shit on it, like brown little panels on the side. I don't know. If she's finding Makarovs, then the military must have been here a long time ago. Well, maybe we don't know when this takes place, you know? Although, probably... And who knows, maybe the military just likes the classics or something. Chapter 4. I did it right this time. Maybe we shouldn't have gotten changed before coming after all, Toriko said, Maybe we should have gotten changed before coming after all, Toriko said as we were heading down the footpath. I was in agreement with her on that. We were not dressed for walking around outdoors today. My outfit wasn't so bad, but Toriko was wearing a frilly skirt that left her legs exposed. Why did you come in that outfit to begin with? I mean, I figured we had to come here before the sunset. That doesn't explain why you're dressed like that. She did have a cell phone. Well, yeah, but I think they mentioned apps as well. Phone. Yeah, okay, they talk about apps, so it's a smartphone. I figured we had to come here before the sunset. Yeah, I don't understand why that explains it. Why? It'd be scary if the sun set here, right? When she said that, it occurred to me I hadn't spent a night in the other side yet. When night comes, what happens? I don't know. Her saying that so easily took the wind out of my sails. You've been here 10 times now, haven't you? What, was it in the middle of the day every time? Because I was told not to come at night. By who? A friend. What happened to them? They're gone now. Toriko answered my questions in few words without turning around. Had they come together? Why was that person gone now? Was it Satsuki-san? Which, if you weren't here for that part, is someone that that Toriko is looking for, or mentioned at least, but like was like, oh, is that you? So I think we know at this point that she's looking for her. Also, apparently Makarovs are still in use, so this book is completely accurate. 100%. It's 100% accurate. All of this happened. It's a true story. I was there. It made me wonder, but I was hesitant to ask again. I could see a stiffness in Toriko's back as she walked in front of me, and I got the feeling she didn't want to talk about it. We trudged down the path in silence. A footpath without someone coming and going. This sort of path wouldn't have come to exist in the first place. If people stopped walking this way, it would be covered in grass in no time. That was assuming my common sense applied here in the other side, though. The sky was blue, Toriko had no shadow, and the wind blowing through the glass was chilly. Grass. Not glass. I was alone with a person I didn't know, setting foot into the unknown. A woman in fluttering clothes, walking through a field of dry grass. I had a feeling I'd seen an image like that in a commercial before. What was I even doing? Where was this? Watching Toriko walk on without turning back, I started to feel a little bit lonely. Hey, we had only met once, so... what was it that made it think you could trust me? Toriko responded without looking back. Well, you didn't report me to the police, for one. Huh? About the gun. I was sure the cops were going to turn up. Why didn't you report me? Don't ask me why. I didn't want to get involved. When I answered honestly, Toriko skillfully turned around while still walking and pointed a finger in my direction. That's why I thought I could trust you. How so? I may not be the one who should be telling you this, but I don't think that's a quality you should be looking for in a friend. But it's perfect for an accomplice, you know? I remembered something that I had read somewhere. The words of a criminal who had been to prison. When an amateur criminal was stuck in the same room as a professional criminal, the professional would ask them all sorts of questions, and then when they were released, they'd use the info to shake them down. Was I being taken for an easy mark? Because I hadn't gone to police? Toriko is so casual about it, it's really good. Chet is devolving into I don't care about lesbians, tell me more about firearms. Stop! We're here for lesbians, okay? The guns are a bonus. Did you know? They say that being accomplices is the closest kind of relationship in the world. Oh my god. She's so gay. Amazing. I love it. That's so good. Did you know they say that being accomplices is the closest kind of relationship in the world? Toriko said, still pointing at me, a smug look on her face. I don't know, and don't point at me. Oh, sorry. Toriko quickly withdrew her finger. Was I bothering you? When she sounded so uneasy asking that, I was at a loss for how to reply. Something like, don't say that now. Well, it's fine, but thanks. Toriko nodded in apparent relief, then spun back to face forward again. What was that response for just now? I hadn't agreed to being her accomplice. While I was struggling to find a response, Toriko moved right on to the next topic. Oh, right, now that I think of it, what kind of places was that Kune-Kune monster supposed to appear in? You're asking me now? Oh, sippy. Thank you, Galaxy Voided. Hair. You're asking that now? We're headed for the spot where you met me now, aren't we? Well, you know, I was just thinking that you'd probably know what sort of places it lives in, Sorowo. I don't know if it lives in them, but I recall the details of the internet horror story that I reread after returning from the other side last time. There were a number of famous encounters with the Kune-Kune, but the thing they all had in common was the countryside, maybe? I say that because a lot of the stories involve someone who's visiting the countryside from the city encountering it. There's a lot of countryside. Could you be more specific? Sandy beaches or rice paddies? What even is that thing anyway? I don't know. Wait, shouldn't have that been the first thing you worried about? You're special. You're a specialist, aren't you, Sorowo? No, I'm not. Can you budge on that a bit? Can you budge on that a bit? That is so funny! Don't be unreasonable. It wasn't like I was particularly knowledgeable about it either. Before I learned about the other side, I had thought the Kune-Kune was a variant on a snake horror story. The name is kind of snaky, and it appears in a rice paddy, which is spot on. In Japan, snakes are a sort of harvest god, right? In some of the stories of the Kune-Kune, it was connected with scarecrows, which was super suspicious. You see, the kaka in Kakashi, or scarecrow, means snake in Japanese. It comes from the kaga in Yamakagashi, which is a type of snake. Though, now that we've actually met it, the Kune-Kune wasn't snaky at all, huh? Come to think of it, there was another famous internet horror story set in the countryside. Hashiko-sama. It's about being attacked by a 240 centimeter tall woman wearing a white dress. Is she single? Just from the name, which means 8 feet, you can already see it's pretty long, huh? It shares being white with the Kune-Kune too, so I'm thinking that maybe it's also a snake god. Maybe the same person created both. I rambled on about whatever came into my head for a while, then snapped back to my senses. What was I doing? I was clearly talking too much. While I was thinking I'd probably weirded her out, Toriko suddenly came to a stop. Sorowo. Sorry. When she spoke in a low voice, I reflexively apologized. No. She's definitely more goals of being than goals of being with the Hashiko-sama. Definitely. We all want to be real tall and kill people in the dark of night, don't we? No, not sorry. Look, Toriko pointed up ahead of us. Or well, it says "ooh-ah," which I'm speaking English, so I don't think I can make "ooh-ah" work good, but whatever. When I looked where she was pointing, I let out an unintended cry of surprise. About 5 meters ahead, I could see a human-like figure lying across the path. It was blocked by the grass, so it hadn't caught our attention until we got close. Even though we were close to it, it didn't stir. Cautiously, I gauged the situation. It looked like it was a man in a white dress shirt. Dead, perhaps? The arms were thrust into the air, bent and reaching for his face. His skin was bleached. In contrast to his arms, his legs were thrown haphazardly outside the path. His face was hidden by the grass, so I couldn't see it. He's not going to attack us if we get close, right? I was joking a little to try and dispel the tension, but I immediately regretted it, as I imagined a vivid mental image of the desiccated corpse sitting up. Toriko slowly walked forward. What are you going to do? Investigate. What else? What is this? Pull. You guys did pull? What kind of lesbian are you? Accomplice or criminal? Nice. I'm so glad we're all accomplices here. Cautiously as she approached the corpse, it didn't spring into motion. Though I wondered just what kind of grotesque sight awaited, I peered into the grass to see his face. What is this? Oh, wait, hold on. What is this? I said in monotone. I couldn't make out the man's face at all. On top of the fact he was covering his face with both hands, there were these twisted, see-through protuberances that seemed to have grown out through the gaps between his fingers with an incredible vigor. The things were translucent, white, long, and had rounded tips. In some places they also branched out, reaching further. They looked both like delicate glasswork and like fungal filaments. They shook each time the wind blew through the grass, and they sparkled. Never seen this before, Toriko mumbled to herself in bewilderment. They were so mysterious that I found myself staring intently at them despite how gross it all was. Though the translucent protuberances were like mushrooms growing out of the corpse, it seemed they hadn't grown from the surface of the face, but had erupted through the skin from inside the head. The teeth peering through his blanched lips were translucent and meshed together like some sort of complicated...
I don't feel safe!
Me neither. Like some sort of complicated puzzle. If the bones of his skull were disfigured... No, I was right. If the bones of his skull were disfigured and then they grew at random, would it end up with a result like this? That was when I came to a frightening realization and shuddered. The man's hands weren't only covering his face, they were poking deep into his eye sockets. What's this stench? Toriko twitched her nose. Then, a little later, I detected it. There was an intense smell of raw fish wafting in from somewhere. We both came to a total stop and looked at one another, gulping. The wind had stopped. It was so silent you could hear the buzz of tinnitus in your ears. When I timidly raised my voice, there was a white wavering thing that was rising up in front of us. Oh, not voice, face, sorry. It was like a madly twisting humanoid figure on the other side of the heat haze produced by the road in summer. The Kune Kune had come. Chapter 5, which I think is the last chapter of Part 1, or File 1 rather. Doesn't say. We shall never know. Itchy. Ugh. Immediately stuck with dizziness, I looked down. Stealing glimpses of it out of the corner of my eyes, I tried to grasp the Kune Kune shape. The lanky humanoid silhouette really did resemble a snake, like I'd thought. There were a number of rounded growths connected by thin, string-like sections, but if I tried to focus my eyes on it, I instantly was hit with nausea. This is really tough, huh? Toriko said, her voice filled with revulsion. I warned her, didn't I? Are you okay? Should we run away after all? No, we came here for this, so we've got to do it. Digging through her tote bag, Toriko produced a lump of rock salt. Yo! With a silly shout, Toriko threw it. Her aim was precise, impressively so, and the rock salt was sucked into her target. And then... nothing happened. Only the sound of the rock salt rolling across the ground. I hadn't seen whether it bounced off or passed through. Toriko-san? Toriko-san? Huh? No, not huh. It didn't work. Aw, jeez. Well, if that's how it's gonna be... Toriko pulled the gun from her tote bag, snapping into position. What? While I was panicking, there was a loud gunshot. Bang. I don't have a gunshot at hand, so... Bang. Eek! All these noises, I don't know how to make noises like that. Anyway, it's like a scared noise. Thank you. It's like E-E-K. That kind of noise. And also an exclamation mark. Or point, whatever you want. I ducked my head and Toriko kept firing. The sound of gunshots was sucked into the sky. Then, some seconds later, they came back as echoes. She didn't hesitate to open fire. What was wrong with her? After a number of shots, Toriko stopped firing and cocked her head to the side. Huh? Hold on? There was no change in the kune-kune. I couldn't even be sure that she'd hit it. Toriko's shooting form was solid, so I couldn't imagine her missing completely, but the inscrutable smoke-like form of the thing was still doing its kune-kune dance, the same as ever. Nah, I think its movements have gotten a little slower. That's a lie, nothing's changed. This isn't working at all, is it? Maybe if we shoot it a bit more? Before Toriko could finish, I was hit with an even more powerful dizziness. Ugh. I couldn't stay standing and fell to my knees on the spot. Toriko did the same. The hand she held her gun in was pressed to the ground, and she was shutting her eyes tied with pain. If I so much as took a glance at the kune-kune, the bizarre sensation would strike, like I'd almost figured something out. It's like, oh wait, it's on this side. It's here. There we go. This VTuber is really realistic. I know, brand new technology. But it's very unstable, so I only use it when reading books, because reading books is a very nice calm thing that doesn't take too much of my computer processing, so I can use this VTuber technology with that, you know? Like it almost figures something out, but understanding it would ruin me. I lowered my face, calling out to Toriko. Can you move? No, my legs gave out. You? It's not looking like it. Well, shoot. Sorry. What do you think happens now? I don't know. But no matter what it is, it's not gonna be good for us. While we were crouched down on the ground, talking, I could sense the kune-kune getting closer. Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, what now? Toriko, status! We've got to verify the current situation. I only said that to suppress my own panic, but Toriko was quick to respond. Okay, status, unable to stand, unable to run, horribly dizzy, rock-solid gunfire ineffective, anything else? Her report on the situation was surprisingly calm, and that helped me settle down a little too. Swallowing my spit, I replied. Also, looking at the thing messes with your head. I'm not sure I'd call this okay. What do you think happens when it messes with your head? There's something that it'd be really bad to understand, and it makes you feel like you're about to. What exactly does that mean? You're gonna have to be more concrete here. That's concrete, baby. What about... Is it better? Whatever. Messing with my hair. I always have this. I always have like one stupid strand of hair that doesn't want to go either way. It's very annoying. I hate it forever. Anyway. Could you not be so unreasonable? It's something you're not supposed to understand, so there's no way I could completely explain it to... That's when I remembered. During my first encounter with the kune-kune, on the verge of my head getting all messed up, I'd felt like I managed to grasp something. Toriko, this is just a possibility, but maybe if we don't avert our eyes and we keep looking, we might have a chance. Do you seriously mean that? We've already driven that thing off once. I was even more far off gone that time. If we can recreate the same situation, maybe the same thing will happen. Even though our heads will get messed up, it's necessary. It's like matching wavelengths. If we're going to hunt creatures from the other side, I think we're going to need to come to terms with the rules and logic of this place. Toriko went quiet for a little while, then spoke with resolve. Got it. I'll do it with you. No, don't look, Toriko. I'll do the looking. Why not? If we both go crazy, we won't be able to make it back. If I look like I'm about to go nuts, figure something out. This was nothing if not an unreasonable demand, but Toriko nodded without even hesitating. Okay, I'll do something. Thanks. Please do. And so, I raised my face, and I stared straight at the Kune-Kune. This is so intense. Now we do have to put on the spooky playlist, I think. And hello, Gladster, thank you for the sippy. And thank you, Jody, also. Why is the hand cam on? Hold on. There we go. Guess I forgot to turn that off. That aberrant shadow had come closer than I thought, and I spotted it immediately. It was a shock, like getting punched hard, nice, right in the brain. At the same time, the sense that I could almost understand was rapidly rising. This is bad. I'm gonna puke. I groaned. I threw up, and then words I'd never intended to speak started to spill fluently out of my mouth. According to my brother, it was when the green had grown thick. What were all those people in pure white clothes doing in a place like this? With a totally natural bending of his joints. My brother just Sorowo? The sun rising before noon. A lukewarm wind will blow, no longer in my brother's voice. The thing that seated up right behind me, scratching the tatami mats with bare feet, an incredible ocean of grays. I didn't have the presence of mind left to worry about what bizarre words I was spouting. I couldn't look away from the Kune. It was like it had seized my eyeballs and locked them in place. Just a little more, and I'd understand. It started to shine in front of my eyes. The edges of my field of vision were eaten away with blue, as if someone had spilled a bottle of ink. The world was distorted, as if I were looking through water. Left, then right, it swayed. Though only vaguely, I realized something was changing in my body. And so, I learned that the strange translucent thing growing out of the corpse we just found, it was trying to grow out of my face. I opened my mouth to scream, and a translucent protuberance twisted and grew out of it. My teeth jiggled. I sensed them going soft, and all at once I felt my sanity being carried away. Then at last, I understood. The Kune-Kune reflected in my swaying vision moved as if it were sliding along the surface of the foreign body growing out of my face. It was very familiar to the plankton-like patterns that had appeared in my eyes when I stared up into the blue sky. Basically, it looked like the Kune-Kune was standing there, but it wasn't. Like how white blood cells in the eyeball appeared to be floating when they were projected on the blue sky. The Kune-Kune was, in fact, a completely different thing being projected on something that was between us and the world. This foreign body had connected to whatever that was. I understood something else too. The reason that the first time I'd encountered the Kune-Kune, Toriko's rock salt had been able to drive it off. That was because I recognized something the Kune-Kune was projected on. When I looked at that thing and recognized it, the rock salt hid it. If I didn't recognize it, there was nothing there. I get it! I get it! I get it! I get it! I kept on shouting. I couldn't have stopped if I tried. I just shouted I get it over and over as if I were screaming it. Then, suddenly, pain rushed through my cheeks as if I'd been slapped. Toriko was in front of me. The hand she was holding the gun with was stretched out toward me, trying to wipe away the foreign body that kept on growing. It infected the fingers that touched it, turning them translucent, and they were beginning to become disfigured. But she didn't seem to care. Oh, hey. She's a better person than I thought. This is a lot. This is, like, obviously it's like an intense moment in the adaptations as well, but it's a lot here. It's very cool. I like it. While I was looking at her face, beautiful even as it was distorted by desperation, thinking about things like they had nothing to do with me, Toriko must have gotten impatient because she grabbed my head with both hands and shouted in my face, "You're getting too much, Sorowo! Come back!" With those words, my mind was suddenly clear. Awoken by Yuri! Yay! Oh, right. If I went any further, there was no coming back. With my body moving slowly. Sorrow going insane looking at the horror monster. She's so beautiful. With my body moving slowly as if I was in a dream, I pulled the gun from my bag and I tried to take a stance. No dice, I couldn't aim, my hands were limp. I should have practiced like Toriko said to. Inhaling, I shouted, "Toriko, shoot! Shoot the kune-kune!" Toriko looked me in the eye, then gave a big nod. She let go of my face, readying the gun as she turned and faced the kune-kune. She pulled the trigger. With the dry echo of a gunshot, a hot bullet rushed forth from the muzzle. It struck something between me and the world, a membrane on which the kune-kune was projected, and shattered it. The sound, the heat, they seemed to blossom like a flower, and then rapidly shriveled. That thing folded like origami, folding, until it turned into a tiny lump, and then fell to the ground, taking the kune-kune with it. Letting out a huge sigh, I dropped the gun. Instantly, I brought my hands to my face. That foreign body that had been growing voluminously out of my mouth and face was no more. With heaving breaths, I slumped to the ground in a daze, then turned my face to look at Toriko. When I saw her hands were back to normal too, I was relieved. Then we got super scared. Wow! Wow! I can never do that. I can never do the scared screams on command. I mean, I probably could, but not the way to... Anyway, doesn't matter. We both screamed in unison. Well, I definitely can't do that, so it's fine. I can't scream twice. Scrambling to our unsteady feet, while I was hurriedly picking up my gun, Toriko nearly tripped as she rushed over to where the kune-kune had been and got down on her hands and feet. Found it! Jumping to her feet with a shout, Toriko had the mirror stone that was reflecting the sun in her hand. It was something folded into a cube. We hadn't talked over what to do, but we both turned on our heels and hightailed it out of there. With the horizon being dyed purple at the edges, the darkness of evening was on its way. We raced through the wind-rustled grass, out of breath. The further we got from the scene, the harder it was not to laugh. That was scary. Super scary, Toriko shouted. But we did it! We hunted a kune-kune! We did it, Sorowo! That was so crazy. Seriously, give me a break. It reminded me of when I was still young and innocent, and how after playing until I tuckered myself out, I would race across the gold-stained fields toward home. Toriko and I both laughed as we ran, incoherently, like we were insane, like children. The tears came. Thank goodness we didn't die. Thank goodness we didn't go crazy. Sorowo, when we get back, let's have a party, Toriko suddenly said. Huh? I reacted with surprise, and Toriko happily went on. There'll be money coming in, so let's celebrate. I've never had an after-party before, you know? What, she hadn't? Well, I guess I don't mind. Yay! It says yay! Now that's a word that I can definitely say. These plains were a place I had wanted to monopolize for myself, even now that I knew they were more... Yippee! Even now that I knew they were more bizarre and dangerous than I had initially thought, I still felt the same. But now, if it was with this strange woman, I was starting to think I wouldn't mind playing together. The end of File 1 of Part 1, and also the end of Chapter 5 of File 1 of Part 1, Volume 1, that is to say. Very gay. That is so gay. I love it. That's very good. I like it a lot. They are so gay is the thing about it though. For real. Yeah, so this was really fun. I will not, like I said earlier, I will not be reading the rest of the book to you. We've only read this much. You can't fucking see. This much. Doesn't really want to focus. I've only read this much, so there's a lot of other stuff that you guys can read for yourself. And I believe there's even a second omnibus, so this goes on for a while. The reason why I'm not reading all of it, I will explain again, is because unlike other books that I've read on stream, this is by a modern author, so I don't want to take money from her away by just reading the entire thing when you guys could be supporting them, you know? But I really liked this. This was very, very fun and enjoyable. It got scary. It was very gay. I liked it. There's 8 volumes total, 3 of which have physical English releases. When you say volumes, so like, oh, Mismatched Mimic and your viewers, hello. You are getting here near the end of the stream. I'm sorry to say, but thanks so much anyway for the raid. Hello everyone. I am Zoe Gauntlet Queen. I am an artist. I made that. That's my model usually. I made all the other stuff around here. And I'm a variety streamer. We just finished reading the first the first 5 chapters of this book, which was very, very enjoyable. But yeah, so if you guys liked it, you should pick it up for yourself. Definitely gonna pick the rest of it. Thank you for sharing. Yay! Nice. That's very good. You get adorably started, IRL. Thanks. But yeah, that was very, very enjoyable. And now I finally finished it. I've had this book in my bookcase for like half a year, and like I just kept not having the opportunity to read it on stream, like I had promised I would. And now I finally did. I'm so happy. So now it's the end of the year. That was it. That was all my streams this year. I totally forgot to do an end of year survey. I guess we can do a beginning of year survey. That's fine. But like, what do you guys think of my stream? What would you like to see more of? Hi. I don't know. I'll do like a little question. It's like, hi. And then you get to write hello, you know? But yeah, next time you see me, I will almost definitely be VTuber again and not face. It's only for book streams. And I don't actually have any other books lined up. We still haven't finished reading all of the scary stories about the Fae, for example. And I've got another book about Irish fairy tales and stuff. I want to see more Zoe Gauntlet Queen crying and eating sand. Those are things I did this year, not simultaneously though. But yeah, this has been a very nice year of streaming for me. I only released, I think, 1 new model, which is pretty sad, but a pretty big sucks. But I've just been so busy with everything all the time. And you know, of course, in the beginning of the next month, well, halfway through next month, I'm gonna get my bottom surgery also. So then I won't even be able to stream for a little bit, which might actually mean I have more time to work on new models. We'll see. In any case, fucking Christ. I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. If you did and you're like, wow, when more? Exclamation point links in the chat, and you get a link that leads to my little website. It has all my links on it, blah, 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 blah. You can figure it out from there. Discord is the best place to stay up to date what I'm gonna do, because you get a little notification when I'm gonna go live or buzz the schedule. You don't have to worry about joining a whole community if you don't want to. It's totally fair. I totally get it. It's a lot of stuff. So all you have is the stream announcements channel and a channel explaining how to get into a full server if you want to, but you don't have to at all. I keep forgetting to tell you, one of my best friends has gotten into Guild Wars too! I can't stop her. Yeah! Nice! That is wonderful news. I have to play more Guild Wars, because I have so many characters that I still have to level, and I gotta play through the story with Jody. I want to play through the thing. I want to stream it. I want to stream Guild Wars. I want to stream through the whole thing and be like a thing where, like, when I'm in the overworld and not like in a story instance, I can play together with everyone and we can do tasks and missions together and stuff. That'll be fun. And it'll be Return of Philia Fog, which will be nice. We can stream Guild Wars 2 together when we finished Halo, for example. But you and I already have progress on the story, so we would have to start from the beginning. Well, I guess not necessarily. Well, we can talk about it anyway. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little book. I hope you guys enjoyed my stream. I hope you guys have a wonderful new year. And now I am going to find us someone to raid. I want to play with her sometime, but she's been sick in Australia. I hope she gets better soon, and also the sickness. So hopefully soon. Hopefully. That'd be nice. Alright, let's see. Well, from one MMO to another, well, from talking to one MMO to watching an MMO, we're going to raid my nice, very cool friend Pikuselu, who is another member of RXD, who is playing Final Fantasy 15. It's the big one. Ooh, that one that everyone's talking about, that I personally, it's not for me. But Piku is for me. Piku is wonderful. Piku is a little bit more 18 plus than I am, so be aware of that. And the raid message will be... oh... Let's be Yuri in the horror dimension. In the fucked... No, wait, can't say fucked, I think. No, you can. Fucked up horror dimension. Together. Did I say 15? I meant 14. Whatever. I like 15 better. This is a raid message. Let me start to raid. There we go. So yeah, once again, thank you guys so much. I hope you had a really, really good time here tonight, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Don't do fireworks. Fireworks are bad. And I'll see you guys. Woo! Thank you very much, XIY, for the follow. And I'll see you guys all in the next year. Bye bye. I got fucking lipstick on my teeth again. Anyway, bye.